You ever walk into a leasing office and ask a question and wonder, am I talking to a human or a half charged Roomba in business casual? Let's be real. AI's taking over inboxes, tours are running on autopilot, and somewhere along the way, we stopped selling homes and started selling checklists. The passion, missing. The connection, weaker than your weakest Wi Fi. The experience, eh. In this episode of Rooms with Ronald, we're unpacking how leasing lost its human touch, why just needing a body is failing our teams, and what it really takes to bring heart, hustle, and humanity back to the front lines. If you're tired of lifeless tours, robotic follow ups, and hiring without intention, buckle up. This is the leasing reset we all need. Let's jump into it.
Hello, welcome to the Rooms with Ronald podcast, brought to you by the Multifamily Media Network. I'm your host, Ronald Harrington. In 2023, I set an intention to shop 100 apartment communities to see how leasing was evolving around the country. Rooms with Ronald was born out of that experience. In this series, I share my experiences and engage in meaningful conversations with other professionals in the industry as we discuss all things related to leasing and marketing. Join in as we expand the Rooms with Ronald experiment.
Welcome back to another exciting episode of Rooms with Ronald. I'm your host, Ronald Harrington, and today I have a leasing extraordinaire, someone who knows both sides, someone who is a 2-year running National Apartment Association Excellent Award winner. I am joined by Candice Manning, who is the Director of Workforce Development, Education, and Digital Strategy. Say that 5 times quickly. At the Maryland Multi-Housing Association. Candice, thank you so much for joining me today.
No, thank you so much for having me. And, you make me sound really good. So now I feel like I have a lot to live up to during our talk.
You will live up to it. I mean, I just had to make you sound good. Your title is so long, and I was like, okay, how am I going to hype her up to what she deserves?
Yeah, part of the long title all has to do with so people can't really figure out what I do, because some days I'm not sure what I do. No, I'm joking. But I always tell people I have a fancy title, but I'm so not fancy.
Yes, I love that. I feel like we see that all the time in leasing because we call them leasing agents, but we expect so much more of them, right?
Mhm.
Like, in that general, like, you're a therapist, you're a problem solver, you're a closer, you're a task pusher, you're the one that gets the phone call and gets yelled at, all of those different things. It's like you do so much more than just leasing.
Mhm. You're also the groundskeeper.
Yep, the groundskeeper. Sometimes you're the maintenance person. Like,
Yep.
oh, this isn't working. Let me Google it real quick to figure out how I can put it all together. So what I find interesting about you, Candice, is you've kind of done both, right? You've worked on site and now you work in association. You're educating people. You started not too long ago, a year and a half ago, maybe, the Leasing Academy. Real quickly, just give us the rundown on what the Leasing Academy is.
Absolutely. So the Leasing Training Academy actually launched in January of 2023. So we're a little bit over 2 years old. And essentially, it is a 5-week comprehensive training program designed to introduce people to property management. But what makes it special is that during this time, we are covering everything from fair housing to guest cards to phones, tours, but then more advanced concepts such as the 5 Ps of marketing, Aura scores, social media, outreach and marketing. And then the entire last week of the program is dedicated to soft skills. So conflict resolution, communication for success, polish and professionalism. The other thing that I believe makes the program unique is that it's not really a training experience, it's a coachable experience. So we have what we call hashtag Feedback Fridays. So every Friday, we're meeting with every student on a one-on-one basis and giving them all the feedback that a lot of times people don't want to tell you. And sometimes that can be on your attitude, on your presentation, on your professional attire, all the reasons people don't get hired. And then we track the growth week after week. Students also test in the program. every Friday as well. And they are required to have a benchmark of 80% on each test to move forward. We are also partnered nationally with IREM, so our students leave with their Fair Housing Skill Badge. And so, yeah, the program, I'm very humbled by the success of the program. We started with one location in Prince George's County. We now have two locations, and we're in Baltimore. And so far, we have actually had over 100 grads. We have a property manager already, about four assistant property managers, five or six leasing managers. So we are learning that the Leasing Training Academy doesn't just build leasing professionals, we build leaders.
I love that. You have to start somewhere, right? And I think all of those skills is, as you know, you've been on site before. Sometimes we just get hire or we hire a leasing agent and then we sit them down in front of a computer and say, take this training. And I use that term loosely. Like,
Yeah, no, really.
um, if you're lucky, the training might include some sales. It might include how to lease an apartment. And then by day 3, you're probably given the keys to the office and saying, "Here's the map. Good luck. Go figure it out. Close on every lease that you come in that comes into the
100%.
door."
You hit that nail on the head. And I love the fact that you said we sit people in front of computers often to watch webinars that aren't interactive, that they can't talk back. The other thing you said that just resonated with me so deeply is that leasing is a sales position, right? Leasing is a balance of sales and service, essentially. And often we find hiring managers are just hiring who they like or who they think will be nice. But the reality is sales is like a real thing and there's an art to it. And so we really do need to be intentional about hiring people who are not afraid to close ABC all the time, right?
Yep. And I've said that for a long time, right? Like, why? I mean, I recently just wrote a whole blog about why we treat leasing like an entry level position, but yet they're responsible for multi-million dollar properties, like getting that income in. I
Mhm.
wouldn't go work for a software company and they treat me as a salesperson as an entry level position. They're going to be looking for, like, you need business to business, you need SaaS, you need whatever, all these qualifications. Why hasn't that translated into kind of like the multifamily world, right? Like, I'm just like, this is why. And you can tell the companies that are doing it well. When I first got hired on, I had no experience. But one of the things that the hiring manager did is she made me go on a mock tour. Like,
Mhm.
she literally, her and the leasing manager took me on a mock tour, and their story was ridiculous, right? I was in California and it was like 2 bedroom for $600. I mean, this was 11 years ago, but I mean, we still, well, I mean, I could get you a 1 bedroom for 599 at the property. And so, like, at the end of it, we go back, and luckily I had time in the office where I listened to what was the telephone call, so I knew the special. So as we're going back to the office, like, I'm closing, and the manager said, "I didn't expect you to know specifics. Like, I didn't expect you to know square footage. I didn't expect you to know that this property had 4 pools. What I was really looking for is that personality. I can teach
Mhm.
you square footage. I can't teach you to close. I can't teach you to get comfortable to say, do you want to go back to the office and apply
Right.
that?" And I look at that, and I've taken that throughout my whole career and just kind of apply that. Every time I interview a leasing agent, we go on a mock tour. They don't know
Yep.
it until the end of the interview. But during the interview, I'm coaching them along the way, right? How would you build a connection? Because I hate the word rapport. I think rapport sounds like a lot of work and things like that, right? So, like, how do you build connection? How would you handle this when it comes time to close? Are you comfortable? If you don't do that on the mock tour, that tells me you're not coachable. Like, you weren't listening into it, because I food sped you like everything that you needed.
No, you're 100% correct. One of the things I always did when I'm interviewing leasing professionals is I wish I was as prepared as you with the mock tour, right? And then sometimes at Candice Manning buildings, there's nothing to show. Hey. But nonetheless, I pick up an inanimate object, whatever it is, it's on my desk. Like I just picked up something random and say, sell me this. And what I'm looking for is for two things. Well, a couple things. Are they going to ask me questions like to fact find? Are they
Yep.
going to have options since it's an imaginary environment? And then are they going to directly ask me to buy it, right? So the overcoming objections in there as well. But I kind of like to throw them off because it's like if you can sell something, you can sell anything. And I'm just looking for those three key factors. So I always do that. And I know that it's kind of old school, but I've found that it works. Actually, I had one real quick story that was funny. I did it one time to a leasing professional who I ultimately ended up hiring, and it was a pen that I happened to have on my desk. And as I had that pen on my desk and I give it to him to sell, he took the pen from me and he said, "Write your name." And I looked around and there was nothing to write my name with. And he said, "Now you need my pen, supply and demand." And I knew that it was funny the way he did it, but I hired him.
Yeah.
And he was smart. He was good. And I thought it was creative. And really, it is about creating urgency. What he did was created urgency. Now I need a pen because I don't have one, just like someone would need a home, and it did show me that. So just funny. So every other sell the pen has been a little more traditional, but that's the one that I will never forget. His name was Hassan.
Yeah, I mean, that's super creative, right? Let me just tape this. Let me create this supply and demand. I love that. That's, going in the note vague right now. So you work with all sorts of people. You see, you get around in the Maryland area. You hear what's going on. So what's missing in leasing? What's going wrong in leasing today? I have my thoughts, but I would love to hear yours.
Yeah, and I mean, where do we start? No, I'm joking. Right now, what I see, let's be clear, right? So yes, I do train the Leasing Training Academy. The other parts of my job are that I teach other classes for our association. So I get the opportunity not just to touch the future generation of leasing, I touch current leasing people, and I also touch a lot of leadership. My two wheelhouses, I like to believe, are marketing and leadership. With that being the case, there are multiple levels to it, but the number one thing that I see is a lack of buy-in, which I feel strongly is due to a lack of understanding the value of the position. And so we are truly grooming our leasing professionals to be task masters instead of driving their performance. And I know that sounds kind of broad, but meaning, part of the LTA, our students go out and they shop communities, as one of their assignments
Right.
one day, and we give them grade sheets and all that fun stuff. And initially, when I designed the program, I designed that to be a training experience, like a learning experience. It has turned into a what not to do. The shops that I see are terrible, actually embarrassing. I find myself defending companies because I know their leadership and I know what they think should be happening. I also find that leasing people these days really are not aware of anything bigger than their role. And when I say their role, their goals. They're not even aligned with what the community's goals are. I cannot say that that is all the leasing professional's fault. That's leadership's job to make sure that they understand the impact of their role. Meaning, you shouldn't be looking at leasing a $2,000 apartment as I just got a lease, I made $100. It should be like, wow, brought in $24,000. So there are a lot of opportunities with leasing and we expect it. But I think that that's the biggest problem. They look at themselves as like low level positions and this is my job and I'm done. Oh no, the assistant needs to do that. Well, you need to ask the property manager instead of the mentality of owning the role, taking on the additional responsibility. That and then the other part, I believe there's a huge disconnect between AI and HI that I am witnessing more and more. And so I've actually become passionate over the last couple months about designing something to address that because it's a big deal. I have watched, I recently had a friend in the market for an apartment home. She was a multifamily professional for over 20 years, has done very well for herself. She went to a management company that has an amazing reputation, started off with a chat box, let's say Kate. So AI handled her all the way up to the tour. And Kate was great. Kate was noting her preferences and reminded her of her appointment. But then she showed up at the luxury community and they're like, oh, wait, hold on, let me see. Oh, yeah, you did have an appointment. Here's the keys. She was looking at a $3,000 apartment home. So where's that where's that disconnect? Because as you said, forget rapport for a moment, but it's all about the connections. People still want people, especially when you're looking at a high-end product.
Yeah. I think the disconnect for me is probably, when I look at what I did in 2023, the 100 shops I did in 2023, I was looking at the bare minimum, right? Like I was like, are you asking me more than what size, how many people, those kinds of things. Like you could ask me what was most important to me and I gave you a point for that, right? Like that was a more than a basic question. In 2023, what I saw is that only a little over half even followed up, right? So AI wasn't taken off then, right? Some companies
Right.
did. And I was also looking at the self-scheduling. Could I book my own tour online? Like in 2025, now that I'm shopping like 5 properties a month, every property's following up, but it's automation.
Yep.
And so I get to this property and I'll go in and I'll put in all my little preferences that the chatbot makes you put in. Like it pops up and like I call it screaming at me, right? Like I can't even get to a basic question without putting in my information. And so I'll put it in and then I get to the property. They haven't read the guest card. They haven't, it really has hurt the experience in the long run. So like you talked about writing a course. I wrote one that I did in mid-Michigan in May called HI plus AI, the perfect leasing duo, right? And how it's supposed to they're supposed to work together and enhance that experience, but they're not. And for me, the frustrating part of it all is that I'm a firm believer, and this is just my opinion. Once I talk to a human, I should continue talking to the human. It should not be the AI sending the follow-up. If I spend time to come to tour at your community and you and I built the connection and you now know my favorite wine, you know what I love to do, like you should take those follow-up, that information and create the follow-ups around that and not just rely. That's not happening. That it's
100,000%. I mean, let's also really I love what you said because everything you said is 100% true. But we also do have to think about a couple of factors, right? So, don't tell anyone. I'm joking, but I have a 25-year-old daughter. I also have a 20-year-old daughter, a bonus daughter, and a 23-year-old. So I'm surrounded by a bunch of Gen Z, right? And so when you think about their experiences going through COVID, sometimes in high school or not going to high school for a couple of years because of COVID, the way they communicate is all not person to person. And of course, they're lucky to have me because I'm all about the person to person stuff. But all jokes aside, as Gen Z enters the workforce, the personal connection has started to dwindle a little bit, not because they don't care, not because they don't know how to communicate, but their method of communication is different. And I am still a big believer like you that personal connection, not the email, not the text, not the bot, is what's going to make people choose your community. And when you really think back on your experience, right? I think back to my leasing experience, and I was a top performer. And a lot of times I would have people choose the apartment home and tell me flat out, I only moved here because of you. Like I would outsell much nicer products. I would outsell specials because they liked me. And so we may have to work a little bit harder because to some people, the human connection to connection is inherent. To other people, it's something that has to be trained and developed, and you have to give them the tools. As you stated, what's most important to you can go one or two ways, right? What's most important to you in your home? If you're just checking a box, then some people are like washer and dryer, and you're moving on. But then someone who understands connection is going to say, what can't you live without?
right.
What are your deal breakers? What do you love about your current apartment home? So they can really start to feel the person and get to know what kind of wine they like. So that ultimately is what we're missing. I just feel firmly the root cause of it is because people don't understand how big of a deal their job is.
Yep.
They're really looking at it like, oh, I'm just doing this. And yeah, like it's a job, not understanding the places that it can take you.
Yeah, I think like, what's most important to you, like I can tell when you're just checking the box. It's a scripted conversation, right? Because I'll say closet space. Closet space means many different things to many different people, right? So like you need to really understand why I need closet space. It's because I have like 57 dress shirts, 17 North Face jackets, 32 blazers, and like 25 pairs of shoes. Right. So if you understand that part of why closet space is important to me, you're probably going to take me to the largest closet. And kind of
100%.
help me visualize that. And then when we're in the living room, and I think the other thing missing is we aren't teaching people how to read body language, right? Like we're just letting them this is my experience. We go shop a property, and then the leasing agent will say, okay, just look around, and I'm just going to stand here.
No,
So you can't
we
read.
can't do that.
So when I'm in the living room, kind of like puzzled looking, I'm like, okay, where's all this stuff going to fit? Because with me, I have 2 large curio cabinets, and then that are upright, and then I have a long one because I collect Starbucks mugs, and they all send these things. So I literally have like 117 Starbucks mugs,
Oh, wow.
like in these cabinets. And then I have one underneath my TV. So like for me, that takes a special kind of layout because it never feels well. You can put them behind the couch, like move your couch up and you can put them behind the couch. And I'm like, then you cut off half of the collection, right? Like the couch is going to cover the bottom half. But no one ever solves that, right? They because they don't see that because they're standing there on their phone.
Yep.
Just like at that point, you could have just handed me the keys.
100%. And actually, it's funny because I would have had you at North Face. As soon as you said you had 32 North Faces, I'm from Pennsylvania. We love North Faces. And that would have started even another level of connection. And I also love the fact that you talked about not reading body language. One of the things that we actually teach in LTA is how to spot different personality types so you can adapt your sale, whether if it's an analytical personality type, and we already know those people, right? They have the pen and pad and they're not going to lease with you today. Any way you look at it, because they have to go to all 3 and they've got the specs. These are the people that read the lease, right?
Right.
And so that's the person I need to give data, facts, square footage. But if I have an expressive personality, I need to be able to identify that, and I need to focus on connection and feeling, painting the picture. And so paying attention to body language, paying attention to communication cues. I kind of pride myself on the fact that I will read you in probably about 60 seconds. And there's a lot of things that tell a lot about a person, from their shoes to their watch to how they speak to their accent to the pace that they want to move. Like, we're not touring someone from New York City the same way we're touring from someone from South Carolina.
Right.
And that's not me like, saying anything negative. That's me just saying you got to read your customer and meet them where they're at. So yeah, like you are speaking to my heart right now, because what I see over and over are just kind of like these tours. Like, you can show yourself around. Well, how are you going to overcome objections? How are you going to be feeling them out? And so even when I train people, I always say, yes, for safety, open the door, create a sense of arrival, let them go in first, but also kind of, how did you feel? Like, what I like to do is kind of direct, even when I'm starting there. We can start in your kitchen. Your kitchen's to the right.
Mm-hmm.
And that way I'm going to come in and I'm going to walk alongside of that person. And I'm going to take the information that we talked about and be able to design the space for them, see where they're looking, and kind of feed off of that, so I can not just listen to what they tell me verbally, but so I can just feel them out and see what else I need to do if this is going to be a fit for them.
Yeah. And top performers are listening to what you really wanted. So if you didn't tell me kitchen was important to you, I'm going to probably start, for me, you probably should start off in the closet, right? Like, let's go straight back to where all these clothes are going to fit, because if that doesn't work for me, nothing else matters, right? Because I'm not willing to part with any of my clothes.
Me either. I think I'm Carrie Bradshaw. And so again, when you would have said closet, I would have been excited and probably made some corny jokes about Sex in the City if you watch it. But either way, it's the connection and the listening piece. And believe it or not, of all of the factors in communication, active listening is the hardest piece.
Mm-hmm.
Our brains naturally want to go 20 other places. So you have to be very intentional. That's something else that we teach in LTA. And I'm going to stop talking about everything we teach in LTA. But again, you're speaking to my heart. LTA was literally designed based off of learning gaps I noticed in the industry for my 15 years in. And so we try to, to drill certain things home. And I also try to tell people that sales is not just a skill that's only going to help you in your job. Like, I've been fortunate. When I get pulled over, I usually don't get a ticket because I know how to connect with people and talk to people. And because think about it, you start in leasing, but these skills are so essential because as you move up, do you think property managers have to sell ideas to ownership?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you have to sell your leaders on blank, blank, blank you want to implement or get them to understand the challenges of your community? And so these are essential skills, not just for leasing, but for leaders.
Yeah. I will say when I'm touring people, we go into the kitchen. I don't cook. My husband does all the cooking. And when
Mine too.
usually when I'm by myself, it's like Grubhub, DoorDash, or we're going through a drive-through. So I'll
Same.
make like, because usually I'm looking for myself when I go on tour, and I'm like, yeah, my shoes are going in the oven, which is, a Sex in the City reference. Like that's where I'm going to put my shoes is like, and I am looking for that Carrie Bradshaw closet, right? Like if I'm going through and they open up and it has the double doors, I toured a property in Houston. I was like, oh my gosh, it's my Carrie Bradshaw closet.
Yeah.
They were a little young. They did not know what that was, but I was like, I get it. But to your point of like, sales helps in every aspect. I can tell you a couple years ago, I was in Atlanta for Apartmentalize, and I was going into a next gen committee, and I was the project lead at the time for 20 in their 20s. And the current chair, Rhonda, at that time came to me literally 10 minutes before the meeting, and she says, okay, Ronald, I need you to go into next gen and you need to make the announcement that you are sunsetting 20 in their 20s and you're going to create a new program. And I said, Rhonda,
Okay.
what's the new program? And she said, you'll figure it out.
Exactly.
And I'm like,
Exactly.
I've prepared at this point to revamp the questions. Like we had the application. And so I had to literally go in and just like, okay, guys. So after looking at what we've done with 20 in their 20s and what the vision was, I think it's time we just sunset it and we create something new. We create, as next gen, we focus on what does that mean? People don't find this
Mhm.
industry in their 20s,
Yep.
mostly. And if they do, most of the time they're not staying. And that's not the mission. So, that's how 20 on the Rise was born. I literally had 10 minutes to prepare. And at the time, there was a lot of people in the galley who were current and former 20 in their 20s. So I had to literally like
Mhm.
find a way to shape it. Had I not had that sales experience, I would have probably been like, so yeah, we need like I would have been stumbling over those words and I wouldn't have had that confidence
100%.
to sell a program to the group of people.
Yeah, no, it's important in everything we do. And again, you spoke about confidence. It Salespeople are confident because they're resilient. Meaning, the average person says no 5 times before they say yes. So when you're used to hearing no's, you are exactly the they asked you to do that probably because you were cheering or
Yeah.
something, etc. But they also knew you could.
Yeah.
Meaning they knew that you had the skill set that we can give you this information without a real solution, but you're going to go out there and still be honest, right? I always
Yeah.
tell people, we don't lie,
Right.
we're honest, right?
Yeah.
But you're going to make it sound good because it's not really what's said, it's how you make people feel about it. And so some people, know how to make you feel good about it. It's not the same, but it's like the pest objection. Is there ever really a fun way to overcome a pest objection? And so I train my students to be honest about it. Like anywhere you go that said they've never had a pest, they're not being honest. From new construction to a building that's 70
Yeah.
years old, they're everywhere, right?
Yep.
But here's what we do about it.
Yep. We have weekly pest
So,
control that comes in that you can get whenever, like you use comments. It's kind of, but it's also the same mentality when we talk about safety and security, right? Like
mhm,
we can't guarantee safety. And so one of my
mhm,
favorite ways to when they start to dig in, I'm always like, have you, just for a second, who's your favorite celebrity? Right. And they'll tell me that, and I
mhm.
was like, have they ever had their house broken into that you're aware of? Well, yeah. And I'm like, okay, so think about the amount of money that they spent on personal security and it still happens, right?
Yep.
You have to use that common sense. Here's the other thing that I'm noticing in the industry is I feel like leasing people just lack passion. Like they just, I want a job. I'm going to show up. And you know what? I went out a little hard last night. So I'm going to like call in. But then that kind of like comes in to like when you go in, right? It's what do you want? There's not that like
Mhm.
high energy
Yeah.
I don't want to say over the top, but kind of like over the top. You're in sales, right? And it's just like they don't care about it. And I feel like that's kind of been the shift since, 2020, right? When we didn't really have to have passion for a couple years, right? Because the supply and demand was just out of balance, right? And
Yep.
you had a 2 bedroom for August 1st and it was, $2,000 and I took it. Now we're coming back out and it's like most people will say it's burnout. I don't think it's burnout
No,
because
it's
there's
not.
nothing to be burnt out about because they
Preach.
weren't putting forth the effort in the first place.
Mhm. No, you're 100%. Passion is the word. There's a lack of passion, but again, I link it or attribute it to several factors. One of which you said is COVID. I cannot tell you, like post COVID, when we were kind of resuming normalcy, how many companies reached out for me to do training because they're like, my people don't even know how to lease anymore. They don't know resident events anymore because they're so disconnected. But the other part, I don't want to say it again, but I look at leadership because are we building value in the position? And also, what I hear so often, and it actually frustrates me, is that we just needed a body. Well,
Mhm.
when you just needed a body, you just hired a body, and now 6 months later, you're mad because they're not performing. This person never even indicated to you that they were going to be the right fit. Me personally, here's what I understand. I understand that as an industry, we're often short staffed. I know personally what it's like to be on a community, and it's not easy. Okay. What I learned is that even on a community, there was a time I was in the middle of a lease up and we just could not find the right person. We had made 2 hires and they were not the right people. My fault, clearly. They just weren't. Nonetheless, before I went to hire the third person, I literally worked every weekend myself for like 6 or 7 because I refused to hire anyone else that was going to give me body like behavior. And so the passion, part of it is our fault if we're honest about it.
Yeah.
But the other part is like anything else, you got to take the time to hire the right people. And the mentality has to shift that I just need a body. I just need a body. And I hear that. I heard that recently, like, well, if they speak Spanish, we just need a body. No, no. Like a body is going to give you body results. If you can hold out and find people, and believe it or not, there are a lot of people that would love to do what we do because they see it in their office. Those people sometimes don't get chances because they don't have experience, which is another
Oh,
part of the
yeah.
hiring process. So you won't give a person a chance because they don't have experience, but somebody had to give you a chance.
Right. You need it.
Yeah,
You want this entry, like it's like talking on both sides of their mouth, right? It's an entry level
yep.
position, but you need 2 years experience. Those two.
And I remember it's like when you come out of college, and you try to get a job and you're all eager. When you come out of college, you think life's going to be great and you're going to make this money, right? And then you start interviewing and they're like, yeah, we need someone with experience. And you're like, well, I'm trying to get experience. And so one of the things I think that as an industry, we really need to do is be a little more open-minded and consistent when it comes to who we're hiring. Now, that doesn't mean that we're going to get it right every time.
Right.
That's just not the nature of where we are. Because to your point, with COVID came the big quit, right? All over the nation, all industries were affected. People who were at their jobs for 40 years were just leaving.
Mhm.
And I really believe that's just because COVID did awaken life in people, meaning you started realizing what was important
Yeah.
as you were watching what was happening in the world. But with that being the case, then we kind of got to be looking for those people. The Candices and the Ronalds are actually out there. But are we making sure that we are creating spaces and environments where they want to work for our companies? And when we see them, are we making them wait 3 weeks for a call and someone else already hired them?
Right.
Are we even prepared to onboard them properly? Because if we don't onboard the people properly, once they leave the industry, they're probably not coming back.
And I think too, like that, the onboarding process, and I've never seen a company do this. And I think like this is what I think should happen, right? We spend a lot of time onboarding you to the company, right? And like
Yep.
the culture and all of that. Why, I think, and this will go back to lighting a passion to your point earlier, is that people don't really know what we do, right? So why aren't we talking and delivering the message of what it means to work in multifamily? We're providing homes for people, right? What does that mean? That's a human basic need, right? Like, I think you hire a brand new leasing agent, you put the hierarchy of basic human needs and you talk about that, right? And this is where you go and think about how you would want to be treated. How were you treated when you lived where you currently live, right? I think that would help kind of shift that mindset of it's just a job, right? No, like I'm helping someone on a human basic need level. And if you aren't willing to do that and that's not for you, then this industry is probably not for you.
You again, you're speaking to my heart, and I'm trying not to get on soapboxes about it because all the things you're talking about are the things I'm passionate about. When it comes to onboarding, we spend so much time with company onboarding, if it's a good company, right?
Mhm.
Like, because some people get no onboarding, like some people literally get keys and they're like, figure it out, right? And you're like, okay, but it's so important that there is a some kind of link between the company onboarding and community onboarding, and property managers also need to feel empowered enough to have their own onboarding process. Every community I worked at, I had my own personal onboarding process. Didn't mean I was the person training them, but it meant that there were some standard things that they were going to get: their welcome gift, their information binder that was going to break down my expectations, as well as floor plans, as well as, the application processing. So they had something. Also have a 3-day schedule. And believe it or not, they're out shopping one day, then they're touring with every person who works there. And then I actually always allotted time, about 3 hours when a new person starts, for them to read a lease. Do you know how many leasing professionals never read a lease?
A
And
lot.
so part of the onboarding was to read the lease and come back with any questions you have. And I don't mean the addendums and all that, all 80 pages, but the first 7 to 11, your
Yeah.
general lease terms. And that way they at least had some familiarity with what they were, what we're really doing. And I felt like they had a better start, because here comes the second piece. You now can't turn around 6 months later and say you didn't know what was expected.
Right.
You now can't turn around and say you didn't understand how to process an applicant with no SSN, because you have a application processing manual and you're right here. And that doesn't mean you're still not getting a hands-on training as well, but we have to give our teams resources. And how important do you think your role is when you come in? Not only are you onboarding at corporate, but then you have a full onboarding here at the community. And trust me, in the background, we're dying like, oh my God, can they hurry up and lease? We need the help.
Yeah.
But I realize that if you're not set up for success, you're going to give me half of it. And I also think of my leasing experience. Like, I was so excited to rent an apartment. And the first time I rented an apartment, I came back and I'm like, they did the app. And the resident services coordinator looked at me like, oh, that apartment was rented. I just forgot to take it off the market. It was so disheartening. And it
Mhm.
sounds so small now, but like, your first lease ever is such a
Yeah.
and I was so motivated. But it was a lack of training. No one really trained me. I just kind of watched and picked up. And I didn't know, and this is actually embarrassing to share, but it's true. Our property manager, 504 apartment homes, did the market survey. I had never completed a market survey. I worked there for 4 years. And new assistant starts, and she's like, gives a leasing person the market survey. And I look at her like, are we allowed to do market surveys? And she looked at me like I was stupid, but she also didn't understand my frame of reference,
Right.
that this is something that I had never been introduced to, even though I was the top leasing person in the region.
It's crazy, like
Crazy.
those little things, right? I used to do a scavenger hunt for my new people, right? Like I would give them the old school product knowledge sheet, that was like 5 or 6 pages
Mhm.
that like it was blank. Like you had to go find the information because I'm a firm believer if you're finding it and you're writing it, you're retaining it, right? And I made it fun and like, different things like in the lease, like there'd be questions on the lease and we made it like you had a week to finish it, right? And that's when you finished it, we got to celebrate you at like on a Friday team lunch. Like that was
Yeah.
like, kind of like that way you got comfortable talking to people
Mhm.
and your peers and things like that. So we did that kind of thing to make it fun. But I want to ask you, I have two final questions. One's going to be a hot take. Um, what do you think about secret shopping? Is it dead? Is it useful? What's your take on it?
All right. So I don't think it's dead, and I absolutely think it's useful. I actually think we need to do more of it. Secret shopping is important because it's the only way you capture someone how they're going to act when no one's looking. And I always say the difference between good and great lies in the details, but it's about doing the right thing when no one's looking, what people
Mhm.
do when no one's looking. So I think that it it might feel dead, but it needs to be alive, I guess is a good way to say it. And in fact, when our students go out, that's what they're doing. They're secret shopping. I am very specific. Don't tell them you come from the Leasing
Right.
Training Academy, especially in this area. So I think that it's important because how else are you going to know what they're really going to do? If someone knows that we're coming in, they're on their best, right? It's like the owner visit, like, oh, the owner's coming, and or audits. And one of the things that I learned from my mentor is we'd find out we're getting audited tomorrow, and other communities would be like scrambling, and we would be cool because we're already doing what we're supposed to do. So I think secret shopping is essential. I also see people cutting that out of their budget because they think they can use reporting to find out if
Uh-huh.
we're still connecting. But again, it's not the same. Like, and let's also be real. Like I know, you and I can look at a leasing report right now, and a company will say, "Oh, we're having occupancy or closing concerns." Well, part of the problem is the data is inaccurate because they're not logging it all.
Yep.
And we can tell that at a glance. So if they're not logging it all, then it means that we still have to send physical people in to see what's really happening. So we have to remember the human component. So simple answer to your question, secret shopping is essential, necessary, and it's the only way you catch the true pulse. And I don't want to hear you had a good day. Somebody's paying you, I mean, a bad day. Somebody's paying you to have a good day.
Yeah.
Meaning when we're paid to perform, that doesn't just mean perform like numbers. That means, in my opinion, if I had a horrible morning today, someone's still paying me to come in and put it on.
Yep. Only why I ask is I feel like more and more companies are cutting, right? They're like,
Mhm.
and I'm like, because I hear this all the time. Well, they can spot a secret shopper a mile away. And I'm like, wow, I've probably shopped over 160 some properties at this point in my life, and they all pretty bad. So if they can shop me and they're not putting it on, you have bigger problems, right? Now, do I think like the fair housing questions and the security questions, should shoppers probably ask that? No. I mean, I think like that's that giveaway, but I think there's you and it has to be a full cycle, right? Like what is the tech that we're buying really working for the property? And
Thank you.
how many times and that's part of shopping that doesn't get done. So I'm glad I'm not crazy. A lot of people think I am when I am like I still secret shop. And my final fun question for you, Candice, is what is your leasing superpower?
My leasing superpower, as corny as it sounds, is that I know how to match people. So you really can kind of put me in any room and I'll find my own comfort zone.
Hmm.
And so that does come from a place of a little bit of confidence, meaning not confidence in Candace, but confidence in my products, right? But I think my superpower is just the ability to be able to read people. So if I see that you're not like talky, I'm gonna talk, but I'm also gonna just kind of let you do your thing and jump in when you need to. If I see you want me to be like your bestie, then we can be like besties on tour, like, whatever
Yeah.
it's going to be. And I will find something in common with anybody within about 90 seconds. Boom. And like they don't even know. They'll say, "Oh, I went to school here. You went to school here. My daughter went to school here. Oh, you have a daughter. I have a daughter. You like yellow. I love yellow." And so really, like you said, I just know how to connect with people. I am someone who tries to be very transparent about the fact that my entire career has been built on my ability to build relationships. Yes, I like to think I have a skill or two, but really it's just knowing how to connect with people, be honest and make people like you. Now, one thing, Ronald, and I'm sure you get it, when you are a person that people can connect with or like, the one part that can be hard about that is that you are a love or hate person, meaning you'll find people either love Candice Manning or then like people that never even met me are like, "Ugh, I just, so when you have that ability to connect with people, you have to be ready for both of it, that you're going to be somebody's favorite. And then there's going to be somebody out there that's never met you that just because everyone else seems to like you, they don't.
Yep, 100%. I deal with that quite regularly. Or the
Uh-huh.
opposite is that everyone thinks they know you, and then they come up, and then they forget to introduce themselves, or like, that kind of thing. So, well, Candice, thank you so much for joining today. This
Okay.
conversation has been great. We speak the same language, which makes it so much more natural. And to the listeners out there, you've been listening to Rooms with Ronald. I'm your host, Ronald Harrington. Today, we were joined by Candice Manning, who is the Director of Workforce Development, Education, and Digital Strategy at the Maryland Multi-Housing Association. And until next time, guys, happy leasing. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in today. I hope I left you with some fresh ideas or a new perspective. Leasing and marketing are evolving rapidly, and Rooms with Ronald is committed to offering a place to hear about those changes. We also celebrate and acknowledge the fundamentals of exceptional service that will never go out of style. So, if you enjoyed this episode, please like, comment, or subscribe. Visit multifamilymedianetwork.com to learn more about our other exceptional industry podcasts, thought pieces, and sponsorship opportunities.